Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to this narration of the web series Why Humans Avoid War, taken from Reddit. If you are new to this series, there is a playlist listed in the description, and as always, I hope that you enjoy. Chapter 24. Kylon Point of View. As we hurtled towards our imminent collision, the sounds of coughing filled the bridge. An involuntary shudder ran down my spine. While I knew that it was rather commonplace for their species, I could practically feel the rattling of their lungs. The deteriorating conditions inside the flagship were affecting me as well. My eyes were burning from the billows of smoke that pulled in the air, and my skin was smoldering from the temperature, which had risen to an uncomfortable degree. With a glance around, I saw many of the humans tugging at the collars of their shirts, none of them looking too pleased with the environmental status either. If we stayed on board this vessel too much longer, we would all suffocate. With the shields down and the interior aflame, I expected the ship to crack apart on impact. But the Terrans, true to their suicidal tendencies, pressed on anyways. The 5 Devourer cruisers did not budge as we bore down on them. They only seemed to huddle closer together. As the final line of defense, they had to stop us, even at the ultimate price. No protest, General. Rykov's nose was swollen to the size of a small fruit, but he was smirking anyways. I expected the word stop at least once. I shook my head. Why bother? I don't want to waste my final seconds of existence. You're quite the cynic, you know. Hell, we might survive this, he chuckled. My antennae twitched in confusion. Is that supposed to be reassuring? The broad hull of our ship plunged through the enemy line. Even the inertial dampeners at work, a jolt propelled me several lengths forward. I found myself prone on the ground yet again, wincing from another rough landing. The nanites in my veins could only mend so much tissue damage at once. I imagined I had a black and green tomorrow. Before I could regain my footing, the humans rolled the vessel sharply to one side, and an undignified yelp escaped my lips as I slid shoulder first into a workstation. What were they doing? Had the steering system gone haywire? I felt the flagship start to tip back in the other direction and clutched onto the base of the desk for dear life. An awful screeching sound resonated through the walls of our vessel, most likely our tough hide beating away. But there were no worried call-outs from the pilots or the computer, so the erratic rotation had to be intentional. Why would the humans want to tumble about? Right, in the wake of a collision. I pondered the question a moment, and then an idea occurred to me. The Terrans were twisting the ship like a knife, carving a deeper gash. We were burrowing our way through the enemy craft and tearing up their inner workings as we went. A crunching noise echoed from the bridge's exterior wall, drawing my attention. I saw a crack snaking its way through the floor to ceiling, with several tendrils reaching out from the root. Sure, our opponents had taken out of commission, but our own ship was hanging together by a thread. Severe damage reported to all sections. Structural integrity compromised. The computer's voice called out through the dead air. Advised to power down the ship at once. Rykov cleared his throat. Computer, you don't recommend evacuation anymore? Negative. That is no longer possible, gave the reply. Why not exactly? The hangar bays and the escape pods have sustained heavy fire damage. They are inoperable. Advised to send out a distress signal and await rescue. The inferno spread had escalated quickly, and if it continued at a current pace, it would reach the bridge in a matter of minutes. We had grinded to a halt in the aftermath of the collision, and were currently wedged nose first into the enemy vessel. Any more impacts and fractures in the flagship exterior, so that meant breaking through to the other side was not an option. The commander scratched his head, frowning. Right, you heard the computer said, all power to thrusters. Once we're clear of this wreck, we gun it to the Devourer star. Should be a walk in the park. Maybe I wasn't the best at listening, but that's definitely not what the computer said. Our engines, which were nearing liquefaction by now, revved to life. We inched forward, slicing our way through the last of the enemy plating. The ceiling, overheated, began to sag as its supports faltered, and I figured that it would come down to us. What hurt the most was knowing how close we'd come, and that we had failed in completing our mission all the same. Then, with a terrible shudder, the flagship was clear of the wreckage. It had sawed 5 enemy craft in half, leaving behind only idle debris. Our frame quivered, still deciding whether or not to collapse. By some miracle, it was holding together. For now. As cheers erupted around the bridge, I looked toward the commander. The man had found a seat behind the weapons console, displacing one of his ensigns. It was a matter of seconds until we passed by the Devourer's star, and he was ensuring that the grab bomb was prepped for deployment. The terrible task of genocide was still ahead of us. There was no semblance of a smile on his face, despite our hard-fought victory. His eyes were turned out to viewport, towards the serene blue and white spear that hung in the distance. A tear rolled down his face, and I suspected it was nothing to do with his physical injuries. Human compassion was so mysterious, and so antithetical to their violent instincts. The burden of slaughtering an entire species would eat Rykov up from the inside. He had admitted as much. Why would a man who so clearly despised this mission take the helm for its execution? The only answer I came was that he wished to save his subordinates from the guilt. Noble to the last. His earlier speech about sacrifice was still ringing in my ears. "You don't come back the same person," he said. I didn't want him to change. I didn't want him to be anything like the cruel humans who maimed for sport, who savored the kill. Without thinking, I grabbed Rykov by the shoulder and threw him unceremoniously to the ground. The nearest crewmates tensed up at my unprovoked assault on their leader, but I ignored them. My fingers acted on autopilot. The first step was to confirm the target then. "What the?" The commander rose to his feet, looking more confused than angry. He noticed a few handguns aimed at me and signaled for the men to stand down. "You really shouldn't attack someone on their own ship. Stand aside now." "No," I muttered. Disbelief flashed in his eyes. "What do you mean, no? I won't let you do this to yourself." "You deserve better." My stomach churned as we glided into position, across from the vibrant orange star. It was a dreadful feeling, to have the power of annihilation at your fingertips. "Let this one fall on my conscience." "I appreciate the thought, but I'm giving the orders here. It's on my conscience either way, General," he replied. "It's different when you pull the trigger. I expect the soldier to know that." My hand was trembling, my voice hardly more than a whisper. I pressed the firing mechanism before I could talk myself out of it. "No more, General, by the way. That's first officer, or just Kylon to you." I was taken aback as Commander Rykov embraced me. Why did humans show affection by trying to smother people? I gritted my teeth, resisting the urge to squirm out of his grasp. It would be over soon, wouldn't it? "You're a good friend, Kylon," he said. I sighed. "Yes, but you smell like vinegar. Get off of me!" The human withdrew, stepping back. "That's not very nice." "I know. It's part of my charm," I replied. All right, quit staring, people. Time to get moving." The commander swept a stern look around the bridge, and the crewmates snapped back to work. "We want to be long gone when the star blows atop. Let's hope that we have enough juice to make it home." Slipping into hyperspace was always rough, but this time blew all previous experience out of the water. The pressure condensing in my ear canals stripped me of my hearing, and my stomach felt as though it was tied up in knots. Every particle of air was squeezed from my lungs, and my feet were glued to the floor. I was utterly powerless, trapped in a lifeless shell of a body. I wanted to scream, then to throw up, perhaps both at once, but my lips were locked together. The minutes stretched on for what felt like hours, and my desperation built to a frenzy. The paralysis dissipated as we emerged in range of Earth. I crumpled to my knees, spilling my guts on the floor. Embarrassment rushed through my veins until I realized most of the humans were doubled over as well. There was a reason ships with environmental regulation issues weren't supposed to enter hyperspace. If this system hadn't been about to go nova, I don't think even their deranged species would have tried it. As my senses returned to me, the most important concern crossed my mind. Had we dropped our payload in time to save Earth? There was no sign of the Devourer spacecraft by the outer planets, which meant one of two things. Either they never reached the Terran system, or they had already taken it. Unknown vessel, you are trespassing in Terran space. Your transponder is offline, which is a violation of planetary laws. Identify yourself at once. A male voice crackled over the speakers. Rykov staggered to the holodisplay. Oh, orbital command, I would hope you would recognize your own flagship. Jesus Christ! The man's pitch rose sharply, presumably from shock. Rykov, what on earth happened to you? Your bird looks like it got chewed up and spit back out. We did crash it at full speed, but that's not the point. Request emergency landing at Mars Station. We need emergency vehicles on site. Understood. You are cleared to dock at any open port. A strange mix of relief and sadness fogged my mind as we glided towards our destination. The knowledge that our endeavors had saved the Federation from certain death was a source of pride, but I wished that there had been another way. If not for our arrogance, if we had finished what we had started in a rescue mission a short time ago, perhaps there could have been. Humanity would be called to account by its galactic neighbors when they learned what we had done today. Maybe, just maybe, the two parties could learn from their past mistakes and find a path to reconciliation. If the Federation insisted on making the humans an enemy, it might get more than they bargained for. This war was over, but the next one, that was the one I truly feared. End of chapter. The algorithm reckons you should be watching this video next, and I recommend that you should be always watching my video. So, click with energy! And yes, clicking that does help the channel. Thank you very much. I just want to give a quick thanks to the Tier 5 patrons and channel members. Ithilia, Barky, Fudic Yol, Cam Maxwell, Casper Arnholtz, White Van 420, Lord Azrekahl, Arcalian, and Oakfield.